Hello and welcome. Sorry, it's been a minute since I shut off the old 6-shooter. Anyways, in this video, I wanted to tally up all the numbers for who is and isn't against the $2,000 stimulus checks in the Senate and discuss just why they feel that way. This way we can put together a more cohesive idea on the actual possibility of these checks happening. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right in here. We've had these debates and negotiations on stimulus check size for months, everywhere from $600, $1,200, and the coveted $2,000 checks. This week has brought all of these negotiations to a head as leaders from both sides have been standing up and giving passionate speeches in hopes of raising more direct stimulus payments to the people who are in need and have lost their jobs, the millions of people who have lost their jobs, lost their homes, or are at the very least struggling more this year because of things completely out of their control. And there are also a few people speaking out against these payments to the people. And they have their reasons as well, so we're going to cover both ends of the spectrum here. A bill with a higher price tag is, of course, something that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and some of the other members of the GOP do not want to be part of. Where we stand right now, McConnell has yet again blocked the $2,000 checks from being voted on from the floor of the Senate. But what if he did take this bill to the floor? Does it even have enough support to become law? Are there just a bunch of Republican senators not really saying anything, even though they would vote against this bill? Let's take a look at it and just who is on which side. Let's start with those who are against the increase to the stimulus check size from $600 to $2,000. Of course, number one, Mitch McConnell stands out as the biggest against the increased stimulus check size. But even though he's been blasted online for going against them, there are tons of pretty funny memes going around of him not wanting these $2,000 checks. It's not funny, but some of the memes are funny. Even though he is the most publicly outspoken about this, there are others who have also spoken out against these increased checks. These senators include John Cornyn, Mitt Romney, James Inhofe, Martha Blackburn, Pat Toomey, Rand Paul, and Roy Blunt. Now, they have cited many reasons for their views against these payments. However, they all have some central themes. The biggest one being that they feel many of those that will be receiving the $600 check are not really in need of it. And increasing this to $2,000 only increase debts and sends checks to those who aren't really suffering, and there's no way we can prove whether they are or not. So being as unemotional as possible about this, I can see what they mean here. With how untargeted the funds are, we don't really know. There are surely people who will receive the checks that don't need them. And in a perfect world, money would only go to the people who absolutely need it. But this isn't a perfect world, and there isn't a perfect way to determine need. Sure, income does an okay job of filtering this out, but it's pretty easy to come up with situations where income just falls flat. I mean, I'd be willing to bet that on average, a single parent who earns $75,000 a year is more in need than a 20-year-old who earns $10,000 a year and lives with their parents. There's just a whole different reality there, despite the single parent earning so much more. And you can think of 10 different situations that could compare this. And also, that could be completely wrong. The single parent could be in a much better situation. We just don't know the individual situations, and that is really the issue here. And also, is it really that big of a crime to give a few people some extra money who don't need it in order to help a whole lot of other people who do need it? I guess that's a question to ask yourself. Beyond this, the other arguments against increased checks are adding too much to the deficit, increasing inflation too much, and on the deficit end, that one's tough because, they found funding for a million other things that are unrelated to helping the general American public. And then on the inflation end, that one's tough as well because we look at the guidelines for inflation and they change. It's a tough metric to really dial in on what is the inflation rate. And they also say we should look at other avenues of relief, which is great, but what are those other avenues? And again, sure, those are all valid concerns, I just would like to personally see some data that at least predicts the economic effects of no stimulus or a smaller stimulus and a slower recovery versus more stimulus and a faster recovery. If someone could point to the data and show, hey, it's not really worth it if we spend this money on stimulus payments, I think there could be more of a case to be made, but I don't think that's possible. Nearly every economist thinks more stimulus is a good thing, and some of them have even said kind of the sky's the limit. The more we spend, the quicker the recovery will be. So now that we know the who's and the why's against the increase, let's see who is for the stimulus check boost and what's their reasoning. First, and although he's not part of the Senate, President Trump has been a major advocate for larger direct stimulus checks. I mean, he's really the one who prompted all this in the first place by not signing that large omnibus bill right away and saying, we need larger checks, we need to cut out this funding, and that sparked Democrats in the House to vote on their $2,000 stimulus check bill and moved a lot of Republicans in the Senate to say, hey, yeah, I'm with Trump on this one. I think we should have larger checks as well. So he's an important part of that, even though he's not part of the Senate. But then part of the Senate, we have Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Lindsey Graham, the Georgia runoff election candidates, both of them, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. And then we also have Marco Rubio and Josh Hawley. These members of the Senate feel that after 9 months of no direct stimulus payments and no action, just wheels turning, frustration, that $600 simply isn't enough, and I think you probably would agree with that as well. It's really hard to find someone who thinks that $600 is enough, or at the very least that $2,000 wouldn't be better. People would go on absolute crazy spending sprees if $2,000 stimulus payments were sent out. I mean, our phones in the office over here would be off the hook with people who want to hire us if that was the case. Anyways, there's actually quite a team rallying behind the increase for checks, but with all things political, nuances and laws continue to complicate even having a vote on the subject. Now, I've talked about this a few times this week on how there will need to be 60 votes in favor in order to get the bill passed on the Senate floor. And that 60 vote mark seemed like a long shot at the start of the week. However, leaders such as Chuck Schumer and Josh Hawley have signaled that they might actually be close or may even have enough required votes to make this a reality. Chuck indicated that just 7 more Republicans need to come over to their side to make this happen. So if there was actually a vote on the floor, we might see that happen, especially thinking about the fact that these are representatives of their states and looking at what's happening to McConnell right now in the press and online and social media. I'd be willing to bet that many lawmakers don't want to be in his position voting against the stimulus bill. So on top of a push for the bill to hit the floor, Lindsey Graham has reached out to call for standalone votes on those 3 major issues that Mitch had combined together: the social media company issue, the stimulus check, and then the election fraud investigations. These guys are mixing and pulling apart bills like it's some kind of transformer toy from the 90s. Now available with Section 230 and direct stimulus check action. I know I joke about this, but that's how they got the last bill passed. They bundled everything together, called it too much, split it apart, and then bundled them together and passed it. It's insanity. The only issue here with Graham's standalone bills is there would be no way to hold these votes until the Congress starts again on the 3rd of January, and of course that means slower relief to everyone if it did go to the floor for a vote. And we know what happens with stimulus funds. The more things drag out, the less money we eventually get. So do you think this is actually a thing that has a shot at passing the $2,000 checks, or is it just a long shot that we shouldn't even focus on anymore? Let me know in the comments. I'm really interested in your individual thoughts. So that's going to do it for today. I just wanted to give you the skinny on who's in favor and who is against the $2,000 checks and what we're looking at here for the possibilities in a realistic manner. Also, I want to take a quick second to thank those that have purchased my course on Teachable, where I break down step-by-step how to start and run a profitable moving company. Check it out, the link below, if you have an itch to get out there and be your own boss. It's not so bad. It's a little bit stressful, but it's not so bad. Also, make sure to use my link in the description for Webull to get 4 completely free stocks. Tons of you have taken this offer and gotten some free money. So there There you go. Thank you for watching, and of course, have a profitable day.